But first, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's start the show with the slogan of the week, the slogan for Friday. What can Browns do for you? The Cleveland Browns, they can clinch a playoff spot. They beat the hell out of the New York Jets 37-20. They clinch a playoff spot. Half of the playoff field now set with just 2 weeks left to play. 7 out of the 14 teams are set. Obviously, we don't know the matchups yet, but 4 teams in the NFC have punched their ticket, and the Cleveland Browns become the 3rd team in the AFC to clinch a playoff spot. I was halfway right about this game. I was almost close to knowing how this was going to go. If you listen to the preview episode, I really thought this was going to be a slog. December football in Cleveland, 2 tough defenses. And if you watch the second half of this, that's what happened. Just trading field goals, turnovers, messy football. But what I didn't know was that we were going to go supernova in the first half. The Browns and the Jets, I don't know what got into them before halftime, combined for 51 points in the first half of this game. 530 total yards before halftime, 70% of the yardage total in this game, and 51 out of the 57 points all happened before halftime. There were a couple pick sixes. There were touchdown drives galore. David Njoku had the game of his life, 113 yards in the first quarter alone, finishing with 134 on the day. Wild, wild stuff for the first half. And then it felt like both teams just kind of decided, all right, that's plenty. The Browns, we're going to take our 11-win season and move on and clinch a playoff spot. The Jets, we did enough. Trevor Siemian and New York never really felt like they were threatening after halftime. And that's A-okay, because we don't have to focus too much on what happened in the actual game. I wouldn't call it a memorable experience, but it is incredibly fun. The Cleveland Browns clinch a playoff spot, just their 3rd 11-win season in the last 30 years. And they're also not done, technically. It's not a great chance, but the win gives the Browns at least a slight hope of winning the AFC North. Dolphins playing the Ravens this weekend. Big game between big teams. If Miami knocks off Baltimore, it sets up a very fun situation where the Browns could technically win the AFC North. They're technically still alive for the AFC's number 1 overall seed. We'll get to that later because there's just not much else to say until we see some more games play out. But I thought Al Michaels at the end of the broadcast made such a solid point that the last time the Browns made the playoffs, it wasn't all that long ago. It was just 2020. But we were in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. Stadiums were mostly empty. Mass gatherings weren't really a thing in the fall, winter of 2020. Everything was a massive bummer, in case you don't remember. Not exactly a great environment for ending a 20-year playoff drought, which is what the Browns did in 2020. Hadn't made the postseason since 2002. They make it in 2020. They even win a playoff game. But it felt, I don't want to say it felt hollow. I'm sure it was a big accomplishment for the team, but sports are so much about community. It's so much about city coming together and celebrating this thing that everyone can rally around. You didn't get to do that 3-4 years ago. Well, you can do it now. And by the looks of it, Cleveland and the Cleveland Browns fan base are going to enjoy this moment. Watching the end of the broadcast on Amazon TV, it looked like a hell of a party in downtown Cleveland. And that's just for tonight. That's before you even think about the way it got here, because this is the unlikeliest of unlikely stories. Cleveland Browns are the first team in NFL history to make the playoffs in a year that they needed to start 4 different quarterbacks. The most recent of those quarterbacks, obviously Joe Flacco, who was sitting on his couch right up until mid-November when the Browns finally said, enough is enough. We don't have Deshaun Watson. PJ Walker's dealing with injuries. Dorian Thompson-Robinson's not cutting it. They called Joe Flacco. Ironically enough, he played 3 years for the New York Jets, Thursday night's opponent. They easily could have called him when Aaron Rodgers tore his Achilles on the first night of the season. And in fact, Joe Flacco called them and said, hey, we got some history together. We had some fun times. You want to run this thing back? And the Jets said, we're good. Now he's a Cleveland Brown, and the rest is literally history. Flacco has piled up 1,600 passing yards 13 touchdowns, and most importantly, 4 wins in the 5 weeks that he's been starting for the Cleveland Browns. I tweeted this out on Thursday night. This was his 4th 300-yard game of the season. He's got as many 300-yard games as guys that have been in the middle of the MVP conversation. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Dak Prescott, Jalen Hurts, Matthew Stafford, Jared Goff, Geno Smith. Like the elite of the elite. He's up there slinging the rock as well as anybody in the NFL right now. Browns are averaging 388 yards per game, 29 points per game since Joe Flacco stepped under center. Add that with the defense that's been feisty all year long. Myles Garrett looking like his usual terrifying self against that leaky Jets offensive line. It's a hell of a combination. And if you want to look for things to nitpick, I guess you could mention Joe Flacco. He did throw another interception on Thursday night. He did throw a pick 6, actually. He's got 9 turnovers since he stepped in to the starting role. But add that to what he's doing on offense from a efficiency standpoint, not to mention the 13 touchdowns. I think it balances out. You start to look at the landscape. Like I said, we don't know the matchups yet, but the Cleveland Browns, in all likelihood, if they don't get the miracle they need to shoot up the standings into the 1 or 2 spot, they're very likely the number 5 seed in the AFC playoffs as we sit here today. It's a really good bet that when the playoffs get here in a couple weeks, their first round matchup would be against the 4 seed, the AFC South champion. That's what it's looking like right now. 3 8-7 teams in the AFC South. That's a division the Browns have already gone 4-0 against this season. Just beat up on the Texans last week. They beat Jacksonville very recently. Wild game against Indianapolis early in the season, as well as just pounding Tennessee way, way back. Obviously, Tennessee won't be in the postseason, but 3 wins against all 3 of those AFC South teams that are fighting for the top spot in that division. The way this is all going, other than I'll give you Baltimore. If you want to say Baltimore, there's not a whole lot of teams that I feel confident saying are definitively better than the Browns. And remember, Cleveland beat Baltimore before Flacco even got here, and this whole train took off. So if you're a Browns fan, I feel like I've said this about a few teams, but the Browns are right up there at the top of the list of teams I don't think you want to play. It's been an incredible story. And if you want to talk about Joe Flacco for comeback player of the year, perhaps, I think he's going to have his work cut out for him in that category, having just gotten back. But I can't get enough of this story. I'm super, super pumped for Cleveland and its fans, looking like this was going to be an incredibly frustrating season. And here we are now on cloud 9.